The rules of the game are backwards at the Perilous Moons, for several reasons. It's one of my favorite pieces of content released with Varlamore Part 1 in 2024. It also revolutionized many things, including mid-game gearing and PVM preparation. But it also featured several unique mechanics that you really can't see anywhere else in the game, which I will explain shortly. One of these unique mechanics is how Jagex essentially made defense more important than DPS here. Not by directly turning defense into damage, but by making sure each boss deals with glass cannon setups in its unique way, rewarding players who show up in defensive gear. Before we dive into these mechanics, I would like to briefly explain how defense works in OSRS. Now, not because you don't know how it works, or I don't know, you might not know. In that case, welcome to the game. It's a lot of fun and I hope you will find this video useful, but because its fundamental structure is what allows Moons to have unique mechanics. Now, OSRS defense does not work like lots of other games where defense acts like an armor, providing damage reduction. If you have more defense, enemies will not hit softer, they will just hit less often. It's the direct, old and tried and true D&D system, where you roll your attack accuracy dice against the enemy's defense dice and vice versa, of course. Then, if that hit is successful, you roll your strength dice to determine how big the damage will be. Of course, I'm oversimplifying the whole thing and there's a lot of math behind it, but that's the bottom line. Having more defense will not reduce the enemy's quote-unquote strength dice, but it will be harder for them to successfully pass the accuracy check. That's how it works in OSRS, and in most cases, getting hit is just a cut from your HP pool. As long as it doesn't reach 0, you're fine. As long as you have more than 0 HP, you might as well be at 121, mechanically the same. That's why in the vast majority of encounters, DPS is king. If you kill the boss faster, it can deal less damage to you. You can get more kills, and you save more supplies in the long run. Previously, the only place where you even considered defensive gear was if you wanted to specifically prolong the trip, like God Wars, or if the switch didn't give you an extra max hit. And of course, if you couldn't just pray against all the damage. Otherwise, you put on your best DPS gear. That's not the case at the Perilous Moons. The bosses here share a common mechanic that causes you to take more damage for each consequent hit they manage to hit you with. Also, each boss has a distinct mechanic when they land a hit on you, either something harmful that's applied on you or something beneficial for the boss. These mechanics can be so punishing when compounded that traditional strength gear falls behind tank gear in kill time. What are these? The common mechanic they share is the triple hit they perform that cannot be prayed against. For each attack cycle, the bosses perform 3 hits at a time. First one maxes at 4 damage, the second one at 8 damage, while the third attack maxes out at 20 damage. Overall, each attack cycle maxes at 32 damage if all 3 hit you. However, these attacks are connected in a way. If any of them fails the accuracy check, all following attacks of the cycle will also hit 0. This is massive. This means that defense matters exponentially here for your survivability. If the first hit misses, you save yourself from potentially 32 damage per attack. If the first one hits you, but the second one misses, you potentially get hit for 4, but you still save yourself from 28 potential damage. If the second one also hits, but the third one misses, you get hit for up to 12, but you're still saved from the potential 20 damage. Your main goal here is to not suffer the last hit, and you have 3 dice rolls, so maximizing the successive probability of the dice rolls matters 3 times as much as other normal damage calculation encounters. Other than this, each boss has a special on-hit mechanic called Curse of the Moon, which also scales off of their triple hit mechanic. First hit applies 1 stack, second applies 2 stacks, and the third applies 5 stacks, slowly degrading over time. This also means that not getting hit is the only way to dodge these special mechanics. The Eclipse Moon applies a debuff on hit. Randomly, your attacks will glance off of her shield, lowering your max hit by 12, which is massive, especially for mid-game players Moons are aimed towards. The chance of glancing blows will scale with the number of cursed stacks, so as the boss hits you more, you're more likely to hit glancing blows every hit, making your max hit lower, directly making your DPS lower, directly making the boss longer to kill, directly making the boss apply even more stacks on you, a negative feedback loop, a death spiral. Now, if you have more defense and the boss is not able to hit you as frequently, especially with the third hit which generates 5 stacks, the potency of the curse is weaker. As we stated already, you have 3 chances to pass the dice roll for every attack cycle, so you better wear that defensive armor if you don't want all your attacks to hit noticeably less. The Blue Moon, similarly, applies a debuff on hit. The scaling is the same, however, instead of the random nature of the glancing blows, it will 100% freeze your next attack every 18 stacks it applies. If she frequently hits you with all 3 hits of an attack, this can be potentially up to every 2.5 attacks approximately. You lose a full attack every 2.5 attacks of hers if your defense is bad. That's also a direct DPS cut which lowers kill time, allowing her to apply even more stacks. You know the drill. A negative feedback loop, same as Eclipse, but you can't even RNG this one out. Not only does it lower your DPS, by the way, it's annoying as fuck. So again, what better way to make sure this doesn't happen than to wear some defensive gear to make sure to pass at least one of the 3 defense checks. And then the Blood Moon. She's a little different, in a bad way, if you're not prepared. Instead of applying a debuff, she does something that benefits her. If she lands an attack, she heals herself. The first hit heals 1 times the damage, the second heals 2 times the damage, and the third one heals 3 times the damage, but with a minimum of 30, maxing out at 50. At least this is what the wiki says, but I'm not sure if we know the exact formula yet, even though this boss came out like 2 years ago. This is massive though, and this is a nerfed state. At release, it was even more punishing. Why is this more punishing than the other bosses? While the other bosses just lowered your damage, you still eventually whittle them down. But with the Blood Moon, she can just fully heal back everything if she frequently hits all 3 of her attacks on you. It cannot be overstated how important defense is here. So what does this mean in terms of gear? Of course, if you come here with actually good melee gear, you won't notice any of this. High-end melee gear has enough defense already to make it best in slot here. But this content is not for those players anyway. If we assume that somebody comes here at the point in their account when the loot here benefits them, their best melee gear might be a Helm of Nades Knot, a Glory, a Fire Cape, a Fighter Torso, Obby Legs, a Dragon Defender, Barrows gloves, rune boots, and a berserker's ring. Look at this absolute unit, by the way. Holy. Now, this is decent melee gear for their level, normally. But we can optimize for defense, which might be worth more than the extra melee strength it gives, for the reasons stated before. Instead of a Helm of Nades Knot, they might consider a Guthan's or a Thorax or Varrock's helm for the extra defense in exchange for 3 strength bonus. While Fighter Torso gives 4 melee strength, its defensive stats are bad, and Guthan's, Thorax, and Varrock's plate bodies are better. Same as Obby Legs, it does give 1 strength bonus, which is normally better if it gives an extra max hit if you can pray against the damage, but for Moons, even a pair of rune plate legs gives more slash defense, and Barrows melee leg pieces just take the win every time. Dragon Defender can be controversial. It does give 6 melee strength and a lot of attack bonuses, which is a lot. Whether it may be worth bringing a shield instead entirely depends on how much DPS the defender gives, how much your other pieces look like, but it's not outlandish to see some players prefer even more defense over a Dragon Defender. Berserker's Ring is the other one. It gives so much strength bonus that most people don't replace it with a defensive ring, but it's also one of the more expensive and harder to grind pieces on this list, while still being cheap and easy to get. Look at everything in relation to the state of the account. So if for some reason a player didn't get this yet but got a steel ring instead, they can use that for sure. Most pieces on this list are winners, but the biggest winners are for sure the Barrows pieces, which have slowly been turned into outdated pieces before the Perilous Moons, precisely because of the DPS is king meta. There is a specific kind of warmth of the Barrows brothers, the mid-2000s simplicity that defined a generation of PVM. It's kind of poetic in a way that Perilous Moons sits in a very similar place both in design and in progression as Barrows. Multi mini-bosses, underground, chest-based loot, aimed at early to mid players. There's just 20 or so years of game design between them. However, Barrows does feed directly into Moons. The single biggest gear upgrade someone can get for Moons at the state of the account they're at is a few pieces of good tanky Barrows gear directly happening at the Perilous Moons. I think it's really nice. It revitalized Barrows and also gave it a successor at the same time, with useful gear in the modern PvM environment. So the mystery of the Perilous Moons game design starts to unravel when you realize just how Jagex turned the DPS's king meta on its head directly here. Instead of normally bringing more damage to kill the boss faster, thus taking less damage overall, here you bring more defense to kill the boss faster, thus taking even less damage overall. But defense is only the first part of the backwards equation. Understanding why you aren't dying is one thing, but understanding why certain weapons work differently here specifically is another. In the next video, we will cover the hidden mechanic of the flat armor, a special stat that was added with the Perilous Moons, how it changes the dynamic of each fight of this encounter with certain weapons, and how Jagex can elaborate on this mechanic in the future. I'll see you back in the Eclipse room very soon. Thank you for watching.